WrestleTalk.
Is Adam Copeland a bit of a needle mover? Is he a difference maker? Let's talk about Adam Copeland in AEW since he started. That was a little bit of a pause as I started there, as I suddenly thought, oh, I haven't got a joke.
No, and I was waiting.
Yeah, and I thought I had one earlier, and I forgot what it was.
You were on the edge of it. It's not my job to do those jokes. That's your job to make the bad jokes. So when I make the joke, it just feels sad.
Anyway, welcome to the WrestleTalk Podcast review of AEW Collision. Please do press the subscribe button and give us a little thumbs up as well. If you're watching this on demand, leave a comment down below. And if you're watching live, join the live chat, join the conversation, and get your thoughts, statements read out on the air by heading to WrestleTalk.com/support, because we're going to read out every single one of them above the $5 amount. We're also sponsored today.
Come on.
I will be going. In fact, could you go and grab it for me over there? It's that lovely yellow box. That's just in that little Kallax unit over there. Because today we are sponsored by Geology. Now, you may have seen that Dan and I are very handsome chaps. That's because Dan is just naturally handsome. I, on the other hand, need extra help. And that's where Geology comes in, because it is a men's skincare routine that is designed specifically for you fine folks. We've got a great offer at the moment where you get 70% off your trial set. Click in the link in the video description down below. Take the 30-second survey and get your skincare regime. We'll go into that in a little bit later. But first, let's talk about Adam Copeland, who's kind of like the opener and closer of this episode of Dynamite. He opened the show to cut a promo. At least I assume that's what he did. Unfortunately, I was watching this on the fight feed, so
yeah, it was glitchy.
Yeah, for the first 10 minutes of the fight feed, there was just it was glitchy. It was cutting in. It was cutting out. From what I can gather, Christian Cage came out.
Have you? I saw the full thing. So have you?
I've actually still only seen the fight version of this.
I sought it out because I think a lot of people had technical issues have been a problem for AEW the past couple of weeks. I don't know what's going on with the channels.
So yeah, and people were like, "Oh, it's an AEW problem." A lot of it's TBS problems.
Right.
So it's TBS are having issues that AEW unfortunately suffered from. And this was a fight issue that AEW suffered from. So AEW has technical issues out the wazoo when it comes to like video mixing, when it comes to audio. But this is one of the few occasions where it's just not their fault. This one isn't on them.
Yeah. It's interesting that like, I mean, it's I don't know how the actual technology of satellite and broadcast and like we're live, pal. It's the whole these things can go wrong, but it's not. I will say that you didn't miss much. Like the opening segment was a weird one. It was a weird one. Basically, we had we opened instantly with with Adam Copeland coming to. Still weird. I know it shouldn't be, but it is weird. Adam Copeland coming down to the ring, and then very quickly Christian interrupts. So you get that amazing moment. You get Adam Copeland's WWE theme and Christian Cage's TNA theme on AEW, which is great. And then, the Cage comes down with a security detail, which is a brilliant visual. Sorry for those of you who missed it, but he's like surrounded by security, and it's kind of like a really cool. They form an actual barricade. He sits on the rope.
He sits on the ropes. He calls himself the best wrestler on earth.
Yeah, which then brings out the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson,
who is actually the best wrestler on earth. Who's not named Will Ospreay.
Yeah, and he's like, we're gonna have a TNT title match tonight, and that's all very nice. And then out comes Ricky Starks and Big Bill,
and that's when the feed sort of found itself and the feed started working. So I missed about sort of 10 minutes or so.
You missed a lot of entrances,
which is odd as well. But like, it's because my first few notes that I made were that it was Tony Schiavone doing the lead play-by-play on this show. Kevin Kelly was just sort of there to be a bit of backup for Tony Schiavone, and then Kevin Kelly wasn't there for the main event either, which doesn't sound great for Kevin Kelly, because the Collision team was Kelly and McGuinness. Kelly went off to do his New Japan, and he's finishing up, like he's now done all of his New Japan dates that he had still had left over, so he's now like full-time on Collision. Ian Riccaboni filled in for a little bit and did great in the role as well.
Riccaboni was there last week as well.
Yeah, but now, like, because I think that was Kevin Kelly's last batch that he was doing with New Japan. So it's now Tony Schiavone's almost felt like he was like replacing him, and I was like, I'll see what happens next week on that, but I feel like that's something to just keep an eye on.
I did spot it and think it was odd. I thought it was odd.
Yeah. But I mean, Tony Schiavone's great, so I'm not one to complain.
So is Kevin Kelly.
Also, Nigel McGuinness had an amazing line on this show, which I'll get to later on. But one of the big talking points of this opening segment here was, and this happens a lot with I'm going to use the ex-WWE guys. It's a moniker that some people put onto folk, where they're not scripted anymore. So they're like, oh, I can just hold the microphone and just say things, and we can just barter back and forth, and and do this and another. But it's also, even in an unscripted environment, which AEW is, you still need to have a little bit of structure. And what happens is that Ricky Starks sort of says, I'm not focused on you right now, Adam Copeland. I'm going to be talking to Bryan Danielson. But Copeland was sort of talking over him so he could get in his little jibes about how, like, oh, it's your silk shirts that are or something or other. You're just a vanilla midget version of The Rock. Also,
you already said it smoother than he managed to.
Yeah, I was going to say, he stumbled over his words as he said it as well. And it was like, Starks was trying to sort of get his point across, and then Starks was like, oh, you really sent me over the edge with that comment. And then sort of the segment got itself back on track. But I've seen people being very down on this. Like Alvarez and Meltzer were really, really like down on this segment and down on Copeland and stuff. And you said in the office you found it quite cringe. Yeah, and I just sort of found it just to be a bit awkward. But it's sort of navigating the murky waters of unscripted, where you are going from a world where you are like, you say these words and you say them to the letter and you wait for your moment to say those words, to just being like, just go out there, here are your bullet points and go and hit them. That you can sort of find yourself into a bit more freedom, and then you find yourself tripping over things.
Yeah, I mean, it's there. I feel like there's something between your completely script every single word, which makes things feel honestly quite dry and repetitive, versus completely unscripted. You're out there with a live mic and anything could happen. You do need that element of structure. I think the problem for me what was happening was that it was very much like people were stumbling over each other and interrupting each other and not allowing each other to say their lines and get there, because everyone wanted to have the last word. And when you're all trying to have the last word, it just makes it feel like it's not a sparring contest. The satisfaction when you're an audience member is to hear the joke land and feel the moment. So I think what kicked it off was that Stark said something about Copeland being bug-eyed, and there was like a whoa moment in the crowd, and then Copeland had to get his line in about, you're just a secondary. It was your satin shirt, and you're just this. You wearing satin shirts. Then Starks pushed back, being like, well, you didn't get style from the other place. So you kind of have to have it somewhere. Again, good line. Also, he's the heel. He should be saying the bad things. So then Copeland comes back with you stole it off The Rock, and also you're a vanilla midget, and he's stumbling over the words the whole time. And it's this thing of like, first of all, talking about someone copying The Rock or Austin or anyone big time is lazy and cliche to me. It's lazy and cliche when Kevin Nash does it on a podcast about LA Knight, and it's lazy and cliche when Copeland does it here live.
And when The Miz did it.
Yeah, it's when did he do that recently?
Well, Miz was doing that in his feud with LA Knight, was like, just that you're a big knockoff version of the Attitude Era, and would list off all the people that he was trying to be in the Attitude Era.
The thing about that is you get a pushback. Like there's the scripted element of when does the pushback happen, and it was the character not. We all saw the character of The Miz and the insecurities in LA Knight had a comeback. In this moment, because of the lack of structure, what's different is we've got the good guy saying to the bad guy, you're a knockoff version of The Rock, stepping over his lines, and then the guy's not able to come back and have a real, other than, you sent me over the edge, which was just a bit weird. I do find this constant referencing to who you're like one of, oh no, someone aped one of the biggest stars in the history of the business because they were inspired by that and it worked. And we were like, it doesn't really matter. Like, Ricky Starks has an awful lot of his own that is good. LA Knight has an awful lot of his own that is good, and sort of points to these others. So it just felt a bit weird. It all was a bit weird. I think there's an element of just being able to like find that structure. It was the same thing that frustrated me with Eddie Kingston the other week. Do you remember we talked about that promo and
you were wrong? Yes, yeah. No. We all remember it, Dan. We all remember how you said that you hate Eddie Kingston and he's a bad.
Look, I know Tony's over in the corner with his big wad of cash, but no, it's this thing of not. you've got to be able to find the rhythm. You've got to be able to find the rhythm of your back and forth. You've got to be able to get your intensity in, get your lines in, but allow the other person to have that moment as well, so that you're both of equal standing, rather than just, oh, I'm going to go in and I've got more to say and I've got more to say. It's like when you watch it on Drag Race and they're doing reads on each other and someone says something and it doesn't land and it's just cringe and makes you feel uncomfortable. That's what I got from this, rather than a feeling of like, oh, I want to see these two go at each other, which I got in the end of the show.
Yes,
with a great moment at the end of the show with Nick Wayne. But yeah, just in that moment, it was a bit weird. I didn't like it.
I didn't love it either. And for me, it's less the stepping over each other, I think, just leads to sort of just a bit of awkwardness on TV, because it just doesn't feel very polished.
Yes, that's it.
But I don't think that's also the worst thing in the world. I'll use the Eddie Kingston example. I loved that Eddie Kingston segment because it didn't have polish.
Right.
And that's what I love about Eddie Kingston, is a lot of his segments don't have that polish that a lot of other people who overly produce their segments do have.
There's definitely a middle ground.
There is a middle ground. But I love the Eddie Kingston stuff, and I didn't love it here. The thing I didn't love about this was him saying you're a vanilla midget version of The Rock. Let's not, use the term vanilla midget, because I think that is a term that should have, died in 1998 when Kevin Nash was using it about Eddie Guerrero.
It's also kind of
Malenko.
It's kind of an offensive word, like
absolutely. It is, but also that term is an industry-wide term.
It doesn't not make it not offensive because it's in the industry.
I know, but even the little people within them would use that term because that's what they are in the world of wrestling. So it is a term that's not, widely used outside of the four walls, but wrestling is a weird place. We'll get onto that in a little bit. There's an Ultra chat that we've already had come through, which is going to bring up the weirdness of professional wrestling. Anyway, but it's calling him The Rock and being like, oh, you're just a knockoff version of The Rock. The reason why that sort of rubbed me the wrong way is like, well, you're like the fifth person that said that now.
Right.
And like, if you're the fifth person who said that, then it just means you seem unoriginal.
Yeah.
And that was my thing with Copeland in this segment, wasn't that he was talking over or trying to steal Ricky's spotlight, is that he was trying to steal Ricky's spotlight, in inverted commas, with material that other people have already done.
Yeah.
And so like, it doesn't land because, you're like the eighth person now that has said, you're a bit like The Rock, aren't you?
That's the cliche element of it, yeah.
Yeah, so and that's why it didn't work for me. But as I said, like I think I forgive someone if they've spent the last 20 plus years in a place that is so rigidly you are going to say these lines and stick to these lines. Because actually, in like Edge's like improv stuff, you go to his like 2006 heel run. When he was doing some of his improv stuff, it was really cringe then as well.
Well, I mean, that's a really interesting point because people were talking about how cringe. What was his big words that he liked to use in his Judgment Day promos?
Oh yeah, the mountain of omnipotence and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I remember it though.
Yeah, but like that. I mean, I don't have as much like sympathy because there's all that talk of people being like, well, if you just let us not have a script, then we'd be absolute fire. It's a lot harder than you think it is, right? And so you, with your 20 plus 25 years in the business, plus more, should be able. And you're an actor. You've done acting classes. You've had a successful acting career. You should be able to just go with it in this moment and recognize when. Also, the other thing that makes it really difficult is Ricky Starks is really good.
Yeah,
Ricky Starks is great. So what if he's kind of a little bit of if you see shades of The Rock in there? That hit when he's got his belt on and the light behind him and Big Bill in the silhouette, I was like, yeah, now we're talking. I love Ricky Starks. So it kind of was a bit exposing. It didn't like it.
It reminded me a bit of The Rock. When The Rock came back in 2011, right? He sort of had this, because The Rock was a guy who would just like, give me some bullet points and I'll go out there and I'll cut a promo. And he was amazing at it. Any promo he cuts in the year 2000, like any pay-per-view The Rock is on, he's just cutting the best promos of the whole show. It's good Austin wasn't there. But like he was cutting the best promos of the whole show. And he was just incredibly charismatic, right? Just using The Rock as an example here, because we, mentioning of Ricky Starks. He comes back in 2011 and it's the same thing. It's like, just give me the bullet points. But it's almost like every promo he went out for is like, oh, I'll just wing it. And then got there and was like, oh, actually, I don't really know. I'm out my game here. I don't know. You like the opening to that WrestleMania that he hosts. It's like 20 minutes and he's got nothing. At one point, he has to go get some water because you can feel like he's like the pressure's got to him. And a lot of those promo segments that The Rock did were not very good. Compared to John Cena, who was wonderfully scripted, just went out there and just eviscerated The Rock on several different occasions because The Rock was almost floundering a little bit. So I I feel like this is I'm not going to say like this is bad Adam Copeland in this segment. I think it's more like misjudged.
Yes, that's what it is.
It's the excitement of a little bit of freedom.
Yeah, you can, when you get overexcited, you jump the gun a little bit. The adrenaline's flowing. You
think you can get a cheap pop,
and you think the pair of you are going to go back and forth at each other. Like, no, I don't think anyone's looking at this segment being like, oh, there might be real legitimate beef between these two because they started to get personal. It's just it didn't work. It fell flat, and it was because it resorted to sort of lazy cliches.
And with FTR came out and cut a promo saying like, look, we were banged up last week and we were advised not to defend the titles, but we're fighting champions, so we did it anyway, and you were the better team that night. But does that not mean you are the best tag team on the planet? We are. And we're going to work our way back up the rankings and get some wins back so we can face you for those tag titles again. And then everyone gets into a big old brawl, and all the good guys beat up the security team, which I loved Brian, Nigel McGuinness being like, oh, how dare they lay their hands? What reckless human beings they are laying their hands on the security team, with Danielson tapping out one of the security guys.
He's got a family. Again with the family lines.
Tapping him out with the label lockers. Christian and all of the heels sort of go up the ramp and stuff.
Yeah.
It'll be a very fun 10-man tag on an episode of Collision down the line.
Did you feel in it at all? And I haven't worked out my feelings about this yet, but like FTR are apparently fine. Like they're sort of suggesting we're a bit banged up, which then calls into question again last week's very weird squash, for lack of a better phrase.
So the report that came out was that they were hurt, and that's why Cash didn't take any offense in it. And then it turns out that they're not.
Except for the big table bump he took.
Yeah, like he's like nursing some bruised ribs, but he's absolutely fine. They're not going to miss any time. Meltzer was the one who came out and be like, no, it's a storyline. The story was that Starks and Big Bill squashed them to build to a rematch, put them over strong, and build to a rematch down the line.
I think that is a shame for that tag reign and what they've done on Collision and for what they've built with. I'm now repeating myself from last week, but if it is purely storyline, couldn't they have gone half an hour and had a great match?
But the idea was you put them over in a strong, surprising 5-minute squash to build anticipation of the rematch. Whether that works or not's a different matter, but that was the intent of it, as opposed to just doing a half-hour tag match.
Didn't work. For me.
Didn't work for you. It worked for me because I
like seeing them with the belts.
Genuinely took me by surprise. Like, you want to talk about sort of like, sitting and being like, oh wow, I didn't expect that. If you'd have done that after half an hour, it'd be like, wow, okay, that's an incredible decision. But like doing it after 5 minutes was a genuine shocker of a decision to make.
It took me by surprise, but it didn't take me by surprise and make me go cool. It made me go, oh.
And led to so much discourse of just like, what is this? Is this out the other? So I think actually doing it this way got people talking more than ever. We'll also come onto this idea of just people talking about things online maybe a bit later on. But yeah, on to the subject at hand. We've kind of gone a little bit long on this already in sort of like our thoughts on Adam Copeland in AEW. But the idea of... we had this discussion in the office like a week and a half ago now, so like I'm now glad that we get to talk about this on air. But I was really surprised when people were surprised that Adam Copeland being advertised on shows didn't shift tickets and didn't shift tickets in a massive way and didn't boost the ratings. Because I was like, well, he's never been a draw. He's never been a ticket mover.
All right, Triple H.
He's never been a ratings mover. He's just a really great wrestler that people like, but he's never been... Like, Punk coming in, you're like, that's a genuine needle mover. Like, that is a guy that will move merchandise. That is a guy that will move ratings. That's a guy that will move pay-per-view buys and move tickets. Like, Copeland's never been that guy. Look at, the 12 returns that he did across his WWE run when he came back. None of them popped ratings. None of them moved the needle, because that's not what Copeland has ever done. So I was surprised that people were surprised, is the point I was getting at, because I didn't think he was going to be this difference maker. The thing that has surprised me is the really good YouTube numbers.
Yeah, which is a good metric.
It's a good metric, and it's not a good metric because it also means nothing, because like there are some clips that they don't translate into money really, and it doesn't generate into ad revenue for the company really, because YouTube ad revenue is terrible. It doesn't generate, and it doesn't then like move into ticket sales or anything like that. So it's not like a metric that could be turned into something else.
No, but for a sort of like reading the tea leaves and analysis, like us when we're looking to glean information, when you're trying to be Sherlock about what's going on and stuff like that. It's a good way of seeing what people are and aren't clicking on.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Like you can use it to be like a bit of a litmus test, I suppose, is what is over and what isn't over. So that's what I mean. Is it's both good and it's bad. It's bad because it sort of means nothing, but it's good because it's like, that is interesting because it could mean X, Y, and Z, and you can sort of like look at things. You know, it's the final moment of this episode is the second highest rated segment from the YouTube numbers with about sort of 700,000. But Edge's start here, Adam Copeland's start here, it's 1.2 mil. His debut is like 5.2 million. His first match is like over 4 million. It's every time you put Adam Copeland on a thumbnail and his name in the title, it does over 1 million views on YouTube. So that to me is incredibly interesting. However, you've got a very good theory on this, and it's a theory that I think holds a lot of water.
So when you look at when I saw this was going to be our topic, I instantly started doing research and trying to figure out, what I can bring to the table to talk about it in actual analytical terms. So I can talk about the ratings in a minute, and I'd like to, but the first thing I did was look, because in the thumbnail for this stream, we have a reference to the 1.2 million or however many it was that saw the YouTube clip of this opening promo. And then my first thought was, I wonder if it's people watching it because they couldn't watch it on telly because of the glitches.
That's such a small number.
That is a small number. That's why then I was like, that was my theory. And then what you do with a theory is you look for facts to back up your theory rather than looking at twisting or rather you bend your theory to suit the facts rather than the facts to suit the theory. So I then saw every Edge thing is over 1 million. All of them are over 1 million.
With the exception of one, I think, but it's 997,000.
Right.
So it's there or thereabouts.
And then you compare it to the other things on that channel, you're looking at anywhere between 70,000 and 300,000. Bryan Danielson and Christian Cage on this show, 300,000 or something views.
No, that was up to it was the end of the match. I think
it
was like 700,000.
Right. So, but like it's a noticeable difference. Is my point. I'd like to just check because I'm interested. Although I'll do that when you're talking. But my theory of the case, and this comes from 10 years of being on YouTube and a very recent experience, is every single one of them starts with rated R. And I made a video a few months back about the Sex and the City movie, and in the title of the video it says the Sex and the City movie is good, actually, or something. I was borrowing your thing, and when it had a boost and it did really well in terms of numbers and people searching for it and whatever, and so I went into my analytics and I was looking into it, and it turned out that the reason it had done particularly well is because people had been searching for sex movie, which sounds like a not serious thing, but it is genuinely, and it also hilariously, I can go even further on the analytics and find you the exact part of the world that they're looking for sex movie on YouTube from, and that's really, really funny, but that's for After Dark. So my theory of the case, and we see this in other places, we've talked about search terms and view terms and where things come from, and if you put something like WrestleMania 30 XXX, Raw is XXX, those are going to get higher search points because they've got the words XXX in there.
Yeah.
Here we have something rated R. Now, I don't know for a fact that is what this is. I cannot provide any guarantee, but I just found it interesting that it says rated R, and I have anecdotal evidence that suggests people searching for weird things on YouTube drives views.
Yeah, and there's a reason why they put in rated R in the
because it's his name.
It's because, well, it's not only because it's his name. It's because that's the recognizable part of his name. It's like when he comes down to the ring, they are very clear. It's the rated R superstar, the rated R superstar, the rated R superstar. They hammer that home because that is the term, the nickname that people associate with Edge. So it doesn't sound weird then when you say Adam Copeland.
Yeah. Because you're hearing the music, you're seeing the face, you hear rated R, and it makes sense.
It makes sense. So that's why it is that. So I think that's a very interesting theory. I'd be so curious because, like, we won't know unless we dive completely.
Then let us have the analytics.
Like, Tony, AEW's PR department just let me just go into the back end for a little bit, just have a little.
It could just not be anything to do with that.
Exactly, it could just be he is over to a certain online demographic. A lot of YouTube views for WWE in particular come from India.
Right.
And so it could just be there is a huge swathe of Indian viewers that are looking for Adam Copeland videos because they were fans of Edge in WWE and they want to see what he is doing in AEW. Could be that. Might not be that either. But I think it is interesting that he is easily the most drawable person that they have for YouTube.
Because when I do a deep dive into the ratings, and I have done a deep dive into the ratings, it has made precisely zero difference. Like, quantifiably, there is no change with Adam Copeland being in this roster. If you look at Collision's ratings, first one is 800,000 viewers, then it immediately goes down to 595, and it stays at about 580 to 600 and something, right up until Punk leaves. In fact, that August is 400s. Punk leaves, and it goes right down to 300,000. And so the average of it, I would say, is probably about 500,000 viewers for Collision.
Yeah, it's worse if there's a big game night, because they don't do well against
Fastlane,
and it goes even worse if it's going up against, like, it did terribly when it went up against No Mercy. It did really bad up against SummerSlam, and then
so here on the 7th of September was Fastlane. The first Edge one, the first Adam Copeland appearance on Collision was 353,000. That's with the title change as well. Then if you go over to Dynamite, it's kind of no different. They have a big pop for Grand Slam, which gets to 984,000 viewers, but on average, you're looking at about £870,000 viewers per episode,
which is what they've been doing for more or less the year.
Yeah, that they are consistent. It's AEW is the, you know what, it was always the WWE. No person is bigger than WWE. That was the edict that they did after they lost The Rock and Austin. That's kind of where AEW is. I think the branding is what draws people in far more than the people.
Yeah.
The only bad one is from this past Tuesday, and that's because it was on a Tuesday. It's not their regular viewer.
It's not their regular night, and they were going up against John Cena, The Undertaker, Becky Lynch.
Not
Becky Lynch should say that she wasn't advertised for the show. Asuka was on the show.
I kind of the interesting thing about that whole shenanigans and the tweet storm that followed was that I actually don't think really it was them as much as it was just there on a different night.
No,
when you look at the consistency of viewership here,
I think there's two things, because I've looked at the quarter-hour breakdowns for it as well, and you can see where there's a drop-off because a big star comes onto the other show.
That's interesting. I haven't gone that.
You
that
can see, because I did it for the Thursday news through to WrestleNomics' excellent Patreon page. So yeah, it did actually impact them in a heavy way.
It did,
but also they were never going to do. I don't say they're never going to, because the last time they moved to a Tuesday and went head-to-head with NXT, they still won. But that was when AEW was a bit hotter of a product than NXT was ice cold of a product. It's now the other way around. NXT's the hot product and a hottish product at the very least. It's hot because Becky Lynch and
it's got an excitement to it.
It's got an excitement to it. If Becky Lynch is in a match, it will do over 1 million views. If Dominic Mysterio's in a match, it does over 1 million views. So it's like its main roster stars integrating has made NXT a hottish product. But the main roster stars, WWE, they're a hot product right now. So that's that trickle down economics, as some prime ministers will have,
which don't work.
It does not work, but some prime ministers will tell you it does work. It does work in terms of WWE ratings. So anyway, maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit, because there's another ultra chat about that topic.
Yeah, it just is interesting to look at the ratings and look at and recognize it does not make a single bit of difference. And even actually, I think it's kind of unfair to look at Collision and say that CM Punk's absence makes a huge difference. I mean, it does. Like, you can, I'm seeing 580, 579, 600,000, but then through August it's 400, and maybe that's because it's the summer, 417, 476, and then in September he's already gone 476, 467,000. Like, it's not the least consistent. I mean, September 23rd, 562,000. I think that might have been the Texas Death Match.
Yes, I think it was.
So, like, if you're booking decent stuff, people will watch your show. It's almost, I think, unfair on Collision and unfair on AEW to say that Punk was the draw and now nobody cares. I think it is a consistency with the AEW name that brings people in.
Yeah.
Were The Rock to show up on AEW, I don't know whether or not that would make a difference.
Well, yeah, I think it would,
just because he's in our.
But it made a difference to SmackDown. Like, he came in on SmackDown. That show got a bump in the ratings. Roman Reigns shows up on SmackDown. That show gets a bump in the ratings. That show does like a steady viewership of like 1.8, 1.9. But the second that The Rock is on there, that jumps over 2 million. If Roman Reigns on the show, jumps over 2 million, because those are proven needle movers. In the same way that an AEW show without Punk will do 800,000. You put Punk on the show, it does 900,000.
Right.
Or if you put, like, as MJF in a title match, it goes up to 900,000, because there are, I mean, it's not a huge jump, but it is a noticeable jump if you didn't have those things on the show. Those are the metrics that you can look at. But for me, like, with Copeland, is he a difference maker? It's a bigger question of, like, I think that he's been very good on the shows. This one segment notwithstanding. And, you know, I made the joke on the Wrestle Dream podcast review, and it has very much come true. Nick Wayne's job now is just take spears from Adam Copeland on every show. I really enjoyed his match with Luchasaurus. I loved the segment with Christian Cage with the go F yourself thing. And I'm really enjoying this Adam Copeland Christian feud. And I'm really looking forward to like the next few chapters of it.
Yeah, I think it's. I'm a fan of his. You know, I've always been a fan. I've always said that he was needle mover or not. He's an incredibly talented star. This segment was just really weird.
Well, let's get into what you think about this episode, and we're going to be kicking things off with a big old chat here from Matt Hennessy, who says, in relation to Edge not calling him Adam Copeland, he will always be Edge to me. I don't think it's a case of him not being a draw or not. I just think it's a case of AEW being a cold product and struggling to sell shows. AEW has a loyal hardcore fan base, but they don't have the casual fan base. I think in order for AEW to get hot again and start selling out shows, they need to appeal to both fan bases. Tony can't just assume that fans watch everything. Not everyone watches Ring of Honor or BTE, and often stories will be set up for those shows and randomly not put on AEW without explanation. And someone who doesn't watch those shows, it leaves me feeling confused. When Adam Page and the Dark Order split up, when Adam Page and the Dark Order split up and the Dark Order turned heel, the story was told on BTE and not on TV. I don't like tribalism, but the way Tony acts on social media does not help AEW, especially after losing to NXT. He had a meltdown. I want the best for AEW and WWE, and we got the news over the weekend that Ari Emanuel, who is Vince McMahon's boss and the chief executive, had been removed from creative and gave all the creative duties and responsibilities to Triple H. That's a big win for wrestling fans. But Sean Ross Sapp and Justin Barrasso broke the news over the weekend, which is great news. But getting back to AEW, they need to focus on telling stories on AEW TV. AEW is at its best when they focus on themselves. I don't watch AEW for Ring of Honor or BTE, so please don't make what happens on the shows canon to AEW, because as someone who doesn't watch those shows, it does mean when storylines from those shows are put on TV, it leads to confusion. For AEW to get hot again, they need to find a balance and appeal for both hardcore and casual fans. So if you sort of try and break that down into various different bits. The Ring of Honor BTE thing, that's something we've been preaching on this show for since the show's inception. So you can literally look at numbers and see small portion of your audience watches BTE. They're not watching the weekly product.
Yeah.
So you can't really tell stories over there and then expect people to know them over here.
And that's the same with Marvel and Disney Plus shows. Like if you have so many shows on Disney Plus, I'm sorry, I'm not going to watch them all. I've got a lot on.
yeah. Cody Rhodes made this point as well, because they came under fire for Nyla Rose versus Hikaru Shida for a Double or Nothing a few years back during the pandemic, when he was like, I sometimes forget that not everyone watches Dark and Dark Elevation, which is where we've been telling the story.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, of course no one watches those shows, but you can look at the numbers and see that sort of thing. What's funny with Matt's thing is just what was the thing that was just that I thought was really interesting? Is that AEW is never really appealed to the casual audience. It's just at the moment it is not a hot product. That is not anything to do, I don't think, with casual audiences. So I think they've ever really had that casual audience. I think if you ever look at a makeup of an AEW crowd, it is 80% the hardcore wrestling fan. And where that hardcore wrestling fan has gone, I don't know. Ask 2001, where they went. Sometimes people just stop watching the product. It is the indie scene that AEW sort of ebbed off of is not as hot as it was in 2018, when the Bullet Club was the hottest thing going, and New Japan was massive and Ring of Honor was massive. So there are just ebbs and flows. You look at the makeup of those AEW shows and the way that people are taking photos of that hard cam side, and it's wow, that is what Raw and SmackDown looked like 4 years ago. We used to cover it on the WrestleTalk News and on this podcast. It's just they would struggle to sell out 4,000 tickets for Raw and SmackDown with the huge names that they had on those shows. And then AEW comes along and all of a sudden they're doing 9,000 tickets for each one of their shows. It's wow, this is a company that is hot and people are buying into it. But now the roles are reversed. Now AEW is struggling to sell out 4,000 seats in a market where the cost of living crisis is also an American-wide thing, but also their ticket prices are way more expensive than they were in 2019. And WWE, on the other hand, are easily selling out 10,000 seats every single week. They're selling out 10,000 seats for house shows.
I think 12,000 are currently sold for Survivor Series, and they could easily do 16 if they made a smaller set.
Honestly, yeah. I think Ibu of the Wrestle Purists pointed this out. It's just like, you remove that goofy LED set, and you can get another 10,000, like another 1,000 people.
That's what they did with the Backlash and with Money in the Bank.
Absolutely, yeah.
And with SummerSlam to a degree.
And they could do it as well, because if they put out more seats, they would sell those seats.
Yeah.
If AEW put out more seats, they would not sell those seats. So it is. I get the argument of the casual fan. It's not one I overly buy into. I don't think it is the be-all, end-all of success.
Right.
I think a product can get hot again without the casual fan, if you get my
No, I completely agree.
Because WWE were ice cold in 2019, appealing to the casual fan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because also the other thing about casual fan is the idea of transients. It's like they might be here 1 week and then they've gone 2-3 weeks. You want to be building your audience to the point where a casual fan is a regular fan. Like, you can't just rely on the idea of sucking in those casual fans. I also think very simply, well, not very simply, actually, very complicatedly, there's this whole business with them selling their tickets for a certain price, and then when it gets close to the show, selling them for a cheaper price, which kind of is a weird business practice. I don't understand.
It's a good way to burn out the area that you're in as well, because you are going to just breed mistrust.
Yeah, you're telling them that, oh wait, hang on, I paid $90 for these seats, and these seats are now worth $20, and someone who bought them today gets them for $20. So what's my incentive to buy the ticket straight away? And then you can't say, oh, we sold out in 10 seconds like they do with the Royal Rumble.
I will say, in fairness, that is also a wrestling trope, because that happens. You can show up to shows like...
No, I got them for free.
Yeah, W used to do this all the time. Like,
Yeah.
if you show up to the door, you can just go in for nothing. You can go for free.
Yeah.
Or you can get like buy one, get one free tickets, things like that.
I tried hovering outside the O2 and they didn't let me in. So
yeah, it is a case of just
we
like...
can't.
Yeah, I mean, well, also it is, they're a hot product at the moment, so you can't you can't get away with that sort of thing. But if you're an ice cold product, you might find that I bought these tickets for $50 and now they're only worth $10.
And I do think there is something in the sort of loyal fan base burnout. Like, you can't go every week. It's a nice idea, but when they are expensive tickets, and just going out like that is expensive anyway. Maybe some people have to reapportion their funds and consider what they do and do want to spend, and you don't even have to think about that. You think about, there's the cost of the ticket, there's the cost of the travel, there's the cost of the maybe accommodation or food, all that stuff. There's a lot to go in there as well.
It's an expensive night out.
Yeah, so it's not. So when your product is a bit chilly, there's a lot to consider.
I remember the point I was going to make as well about Matt's thing here,
Yes.
which is the idea of like, you need to appeal to the casual audience, and then brings up Tony's actions on social media. And I was like, well, the casual audience isn't seeing that anyway, so I don't think that has much of an effect on it. The only people that it's going towards is the hardcores.
Yeah.
The funny thing I think about that is that you had your piece about.
Oh, it ain't got better.
But
Let me
it's
tell
like,
you.
well, it's second place marketing 101, which is like, if you are number 2, you say that number 1 is bad. If you're number 1, you ignore number 2.
Yeah.
The Pepsi challenge, like a lot of Burger King's advertisement was, McDonald's is bad.
Right.
Come eat Burger King instead. Pepsi's were like, Coca-Cola is bad, drink Pepsi instead.
And they went and changed the recipe, and I won't forgive them.
And you look at WWF in the 90s, when it was first against WCW, never mentioned them. The second that they were second place behind WCW, changed the way that they marketed their product. And every week it was trying to bury... during 1997, Jim Cornette was on TV talking about how bad of a product WCW is and why you should not be watching it. The second that they went back into first place, never mentioned them again.
98, JR saying after certain... I think it was after the feed cut, and then I think it was Page and Goldberg or Page and Hogan or one of those.
Halloween Havoc,
yeah. He's saying that won't happen with us. Like, they're talking about that's true.
It's classic second place marketing. It's just that it's now in a different place because social media is not that. Social media has kind of changed the landscape of how we marketed products. So I found what he did to be like, well, it totally makes sense of what you do, because the whole point is you're supposed to make the other product look bad, because that in a way makes your product look good. I don't buy into this focus on your own thing, because if you're trying to promote yourselves, you want to try and do a bit of trash talking and stuff, which is Wrestling 101. And second on that, the thing that I haven't actually not brought this up at all before, but I find it hilarious. This idea that, well, Vince would never do this, or Triple H would never do this. And I be with the Russell Purists, which is like, I've had people within WWE tell me that Triple H has burner accounts. Because Triple H is the biggest. I mean, lovely swear there, Dan.
Sorry.
41 minutes into the show.
Sorry.
Like, as a man who keeps saying like, oh, I don't look online. Oh, I don't see what the online chatter is. Bullshit, mate.
I swear they're like 41 minutes.
Because, like, he was on TV on SmackDown being like, oh, I thought that we piped in the booze for Dominic Mysterio. I was like, oh, you're not online, are you, Triple H? You don't listen online. But yeah, apparently, he just has burner accounts. Like, he gets across and gets to do his form of second place marketing, but doesn't do it through his official account. Because he's a smart man. Greatest trick the devil ever pulled was Triple H, convincing people that he is a wrestling fan's dream.
Stick this in your Dan's a Fed shill and smoke it. That's cringe as well, Trip. Like, I just you're all so rich. Stop acting like posters on Twitter.
They're not like, it's not just they're rich. They're businessmen promoting their product. Dan, do you know what? We're better than going in Raw. I'll say it. You hear that, Stephen Larson? Like, I shouldn't do. No, because they're great. Who can I say? Shouldn't really pick on them.
Let's start a war with people. Why not?
Yeah, and I'm going to start a war with Stephen Larson, the nicest people I've ever met. Yeah, that's Stephen Larson. Our show's better than yours.
But there's a difference between being like, oh, we're better than them, and what happened over the past week or so, which was just like, you sold 80,000 tickets to Wembley.
Dan, that was 4 months ago.
It wasn't. It was 6 weeks ago.
No, it was 6 weeks ago.
2 months ago. It's half that amount of time.
Okay, Dan, it was 6 weeks ago.
Bask in your glory.
News,
just also...
Yeah, but the problem is, Dan, they tried to bask in that glory, and what happened is that people were trying to tear them down for making up numbers, even though there was actual statistical evidence that they did sell that many tickets.
I think it's also people on the internet. Like, no offense to all of us who are on the internet, but there's something about just like... If Tony Khan is spending more... You want to talk about the cold product. You got a cold product, it's because the booking is a bit confusing, the booking is inconsistent, the storylines aren't as strong as they could be. You just putting... Yes, I admit, every single time you do a main pay-per-view, that card is fire, but anyone can book a 5-star card out of nowhere just with the names you've got on your books.
Look at NXT.
Look at kind of, yeah.
Honestly, Triple H's Black and Gold NXT, he was like, oh, every takeover he did was great. It's like, well, yeah, of course.
Look at the card.
Look at the people he had under contract. Of course it was great.
I could book you a 5-star Full Gear right now. I'm not going to because we're running out of time, but I could. Like, focus on your weekly booking and all that stuff instead of worrying about what some like at WWE Gareth or whoever it is saying on Twitter. I don't even know. Like, that is actually one of them. They show my For You tab a lot, and I just mute everybody on either side because I can't be sodded with this kind of like. Either if it's not sucking up to him, it's telling him he's awful, and he's neither. Like, he's not a hero. He's just a guy who has billions of pounds and has so much more to worry about than this.
Well, yeah, it's like Tony Khan's Twitter action. Do I like it? No. Like, would I do it? No. I get why he does it. I don't think it makes it. I don't think it is helping the product in terms of ticket sales. In terms of getting the name out there, sure, but in terms of ticket sales, I don't think it is. It's the tactic that you need to work. In fact, I think what you need to do is local advertising.
Yeah,
I think that's actually the bigger thing to focus on. Is local advertising. But I get why he does it, and actually the reactions that you just see to it are either people being like, this is cringe, or people being like, this is awesome. Problem is, the people who say this is cringe are the people who didn't like him to begin with, and the people who say this is awesome are the people that liked him to begin with.
Yeah.
So really, it's sort of moving much like Adam Copeland, it's moving no needles.
It's just put it down, mate. It's just put your phone down for 5 minutes and go. You've probably got a pool. Go and sit by it. Have a mimosa.
Right, but anyway, we are going to get into the rest of your Ultra Chats by the end of the show, but before you do, also come join us for Crown Jewel on November 4th at Long Arm Pub and Brewery. We're going to be doing a watch party for WWE Crown Jewel, raising money for charity, and come watch the show with us. We're doing a live edition of No Holds Barred as well. Tickets for that are in the link in the video description down below and will be posted by our moderators. But if you are in the mood to click links, Geology. Now, I'm a man I'm not very good with skincare regimes. I'm just not. Well, actually, I can use past tense now. Because we've been sponsored by Geology now for a number of years, this has changed my game.
Yeah.
There was a period of time when I was just really bad for it. I didn't know what to do. I'm not sure what to buy. You go into a shop and it's all just a little bit overwhelming, and I don't know what I'm supposed to buy, and I don't know what I'm supposed to use. So therefore, my skin doesn't look all that great. Geology, you take a quiz, it asks you what you want to get out of this, and then it creates a thing for you. This is mine. So what it does is it sends you nighttime creams. It sends you daytime creams. It tells
repairing.
you everything. And then it gives you a little card here that tells you here is exactly what you need to do, how much to use, where to put it, and what to do once it's there. And it is really, really great for it. And the moment that I started using this, I had people comment on me being like, your skin's looking really good at the moment. And I was like, I know. It's because of geology. There's it's been a really, really bit of a game changer for me in terms of the way that I look after my skin.
Eye cream is important.
That's because
You're a dad.
I had a dad. Oh, I had a dad. Well, I'd still have one. I've got a kid now and I'm a dad, so I do get sort of bags under my eyes. So this is a way for me to try and minimize that as much as possible. So take the quiz, and if you use our promo code WRESTLE70 or scan this QR code here.
That's very modern.
Click the link, scan the QR code, use the promo code WRESTLE70. You'll get 70% off your trial set. And
I'm making it higher.
Oh yeah, we probably should try and make it higher. Let's do that. I highly recommend it. Really, really do. It's not just because they're a sponsor for it. This is one of those times when you get a product sponsoring, I'd recommend it to everyone.
You know who needs some skincare routine? Tony Khan. And that's nothing to do with his skin. Because for me, my little skincare routine is the way I wind down of an evening. Put my screens away. Just give myself a little wash. Whack my skincare on and go to bed. And I feel much better for having that little wind down time. I think he'd feel better too.
So, geology.com, click the link in the video description down below and use our promo code WRESTLE70 or scan this QR code that's just above my head here. Probably easier. I now know how to scan QR codes.
Did you remember that?
I do remember.
I think you had to have an app.
Let's get into the show itself. After the opening segment, we got a video package of MJF meeting up with Stand Up Against Jewish Hate and the video work that he was doing there, which was the reason why they did the segment on Dynamite. Rightly or wrongly, in some people's eyes, they did it to set up this promo segment here, and they did tone down the anti-Semitism aspect of it when we get to Juice Robinson's promo later. But I thought this was it was one of those videos, promo videos, where you're like, yeah, you're a babyface now.
Oh yeah,
you are just a baby.
He's representing the company doing charity.
That's it. There was a period of time when people were like, oh, I'm still not buying that he's a babyface. It's all just a heel act pretending he's a babyface. And I was like, you watch this no, he is a babyface.
He's still got his little moments in there where he called him a mark. He's like a mark from MJF kind of thing, which is that's kind of the Rock arrogance, not to beat that theme of the show. But babyface.
Samoa Joe beat Willie Mack to retain the ROH TV Championship. Fun match, but nothing special.
Yeah, a decent little contest with precisely 0 stakes is what I did do. There was a little moment where they were doing the stand there and we're strong and you hit me and I'll hit you spot, which kind of gets on my nerves because it's so overdone. But then Joe's like, right, it's my turn now. And he runs to the ropes, comes back, and Mack just hits him with a big boot, which I was like, very nice. Liked that a lot.
I like Willie Mack a lot. Love Samoa Joe. This is more about sort of build. A lot of the stuff you see when you get to short matches, we are building to X.
Yes.
This is Samoa Joe. We are building him because he's going to be doing another world title program at some point.
Well, they mentioned as well the length of his reign for the first time in a while. So
he's 20 odd days away from beating Jay Lethal's record.
That'll come into it, I'm sure.
Lexi interviewed C.J. Perry, who talked about how people are always stealing her spotlight. But now it's time for her to get her spotlight back because what she does is make champions and make stars. And Action Andretti walked up and said, I think I could use your services. And by the way, my name is Action Andretti.
I didn't even think of it like that, but that's exactly what happened.
It did. And if you don't know, my name is Action Andretti. Yeah. I once beat Chris Jericho. No one remembers that about me, though.
Oh, I think everyone remembers that.
I'm joking.
That's the only thing they remember. He's very good.
I got a massive pop because we had a video promo for the return of Danhausen. Now, I got a massive kick out of this. Love Danhausen. He's very nice and he is very evil. But one of the things I love the most about Danhausen is Danhausen likes a lot of the same stuff that I do. So Danhausen's return promos are parodies of Halloween 3.
Right, okay.
And that's what this was. This is the TV commercial from Halloween 3.
I did not get it at all because I haven't seen Halloween 3. Yeah. That makes so much more sense now.
It's the Silver Shamrock commercial.
Right. Okay.
And when me and my friends did our Halloween marathon, way back when, this is the last Halloween movie at that point was the remake of Halloween 2. We watched every Halloween movie in order, back to back. This was the one that we kept singing throughout the rest of the thing. She's been like, 6 more days till Halloween, and all that stuff. Halloween 3 is great. It's underrated. Juice Robinson beat Christopher Daniels in a simple match designed to put over Robinson.
You've gone way ahead, haven't you? Oh, no, I just haven't written it down.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I have written it down. My apologies.
This was basically here to build up the fact he's going to be in the Battle Royal this coming Wednesday for the Diamond Ring. So he beat Christopher Daniels. Love seeing Daniels on TV.
Oh, so I wrote this one's for Luke.
Love seeing Christopher Daniels. He's genuinely one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. And after the match, Jay White almost proposes to Juice Robinson to give him his own version of the Dynamite Diamond Ring. Juice knocks out Daniels with it and then reveals that he got it from TK Maxx for $24.99. It's not even a real diamond ring because I don't need this. I've got a strong left hand, the left hand of God. And he's going to win the Battle Royal and win the ring and then pawn it off like an absolute dick. And then Jay White cut his promo as well about being an elite champion. I thought, actually, as a total overall, the segment is nothing but pluses for me.
Okay.
Christopher Daniels on TV.
Yeah, there you go.
Juice Robinson wrestled. Another plus. Juice Robinson got a win. Yet another plus. Juice Robinson's excellent promo afterwards. More pluses. Jay White cut a promo. 10 pluses. This is all pluses for me.
I don't think this Dan hates fun. I don't think there was anything wrong with the segment. I found it interesting that for me, it felt like it went on for ages. Like the match was kind of longer than it needed to be. Sorry, no offense to you and Christopher Daniels. The promos were all both quite long, and then there was a beatdown as well. And I'm really interested, and we're talking about where do you find minutes for other things in the show. Here's an example of it. I think you could have achieved everything you did in this segment shorter, and then had more time for a second women's match, or to tighten up other promos, or to give people more time on TV, to give Keith Lee's match a bit more length. Even though what you're achieving with that Keith Lee match, I understand, but like, you know, I thought it was, for me, it was just like this could have ended with a punch, or you could have done the promos. Like, it could have been either. That's a timing criticism more than anything.
Yeah, it was just to give him a win. So before his match on Wednesday, I don't mind it. It's kind of a bit of an old school mentality of like giving people wins on TV because
that's not the problem.
Build them up and hype them up before it. I was surprised it went through a commercial break though. To your points, Lexi interviewed Nick Wayne backstage with the reveal that this Wednesday on Dynamite he is having a sit-down interview with good old JR Jim Ross and Nick Wayne's mum.
Yeah.
Have you seen the graphic?
I have seen the graphic for this. She's just like,
it's the moment with
Home Alone face.
Why, Nick? Why?
Yeah.
Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Also, because I guarantee you, Christian is going to be a part of this segment.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love this.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited for this segment on Dynamite because I think it's going to be it's Nick Wayne having an interview with his mum. Yes.
Good. Yeah.
Love it. Also, speaking of good things, Kyle Fletcher getting some singles action.
Yeah.
Beating
Rimming.
Boulder.
Who likes rimming? More rimming on the show?
Boulder.
This is the serious show.
Here are my notes. Man, Fletcher covered a lot of ground on that dive. Boulder does a lot of ass-based taunts. Fletcher taps him out with a Dragon Sleeper.
Yeah.
Is this the serious show?
Well, this was the thing, is what I said last week with Pete, is because we had an Iron Savages match last week, and there was an awful lot of rimming, references, and every single time Daddy Ass would fall over, it'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna rim him," and I'm like, the discourse we've had for a long time is that Collision was like, well, this is where we get our wrestling, and we like our serious wrestling here, and we like the wrestling. And AEW is a place where people who like wrestling go and watch things. And I'm like, here's a bunch of guys whose gimmick is they like rimming. Like, let's just, I don't care, I don't mind, but let's be honest about what we're watching. I like serious wrestling. Here is some rimming. And it was that match last week was
characters, Dan.
I'm not complaining about them. Don't you be putting words in my mouth. Not this Kingston bollocks again. No. I like this. I also like the scissoring. I just think when we're talking about this as a show, because you've said it in the past, and I heard it when I was at All In, the AEW is a place where people who like proper wrestling go instead of all that stuff. I'm like, no, I like all of it. I like all of the camp silliness. This guy's gimmick is rimming, and the sooner we come to accept it, the better.
Dan, you can have camp silliness in real wrestling.
That's what I've been saying!
Yeah. Well, I don't think anyone disagrees with you, Dan. You've invented an argument in your head here.
Check the comments. Tony Khan shouldn't.
But anyway, Kyle Fletcher got a singles win here, and later on cut a promo saying that he wants to have a match with Kenny Omega on Dynamite, which I am all in for. I'm glad. I said this on the WrestleStream podcast that I'm always worried when someone's tag partner goes out. And I was particularly concerned for Kyle because I was like, he's an incredible talent. And I often forget he's 24 years old.
Yeah,
Like,
he's a kid.
He's a kid. And he's got so much potential ahead of him. So I didn't want him to just be like a nothing while...
Yeah.
And I was gutted that he didn't become part of the Don Callis family and they put Powerhouse Hobbs in there instead. Nothing against Powerhouse Hobbs, but I'm like, Kyle Fletcher, what an upgrade from Sammy Guevara. Like, he's Sammy Guevara, but with charisma, an actual, like, you know, a likable person. So I was really excited for him. And I was really worried that he wasn't going to get anything. So getting some wins on TV, great match with Danielson last week.
Yeah.
He's going to have a match with Kenny Omega on
it's gonna
TV
be
this
amazing.
week. It's going to be amazing. Also means I get to have Kenny Omega on TV. And that feels like a rarity in 2023. So thumbs up. I really liked this.
Taking every word that I was going to say, so we're in complete agreement on this. It is just nice to see him go on a nice little run.
Renee interviewed the Acclaimed, and the Acclaimed tried to give Max Caster hints and tips on how to flirt better with MJF. It was like, you know, sometimes just say the first things that come into your head. So Renee comes back in and she asks him a question and he says, "Hey Renee, how about them oral sessions?" And Renee says, "You're an idiot." And walked off.
That's Renee's show? Why was she like offended by that? I'm on Max's side here. I'm on Caster's side. I don't think there was anything wrong with what you said, Max. Good for you.
He's also done it in a rap before as well. He did it before he faced John Moxley.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know what to call these lads. I've just called them the Jericho Appreciation Society.
Yeah.
They're not that anymore because that group disbanded, but they're all still together. So I just wrote in my notes here, the JAS walk up and want to shot the tag titles.
Yeah.
It's great because Daddy Magic is just like, "Do you want them titles? We're going to take them titles." And I like that.
Daddy Magic versus Daddy Ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the main event was incredible.
Yep.
Not taking anything away from that.
Yep.
Main event was exceptional. It's Christian Cage. It's Bryan Danielson. It's always going to be exceptional. They had an incredible 25-minute match. Loved it. This might have been my favorite match of the night.
Oh.
Sky Blue versus Chris Statlander for the TBS Championship. This match ruled.
Yeah, it was great.
This match was awesome. And like they're doing some decent character work here with Sky Blue after being misted, and she's got some more like gothy style makeup, kind of similar to what Julia Hart went through before her transformation. But dang, man, Statlander's great. Statlander's real good. And Statlander made Sky Blue look fantastic in here. And like they don't need a lot of help because Sky Blue, young and like still fairly green, like starting to get to grips with these things, was superb in this match. I thought this match was awesome. Really great.
I'm a big fan of Statlander. Always have been. I also love the character stuff they're giving Sky Blue here. Like it's basically she's been misted and it's growing. Not unlike when Malachi Black debuted and he was still selling the eye injury he'd gotten in WWE and now that then took over sort of his whole face. I like that kind of thing. It's hokey, but I'm into it.
It's pro wrestling.
And it's giving her a bit of character. It's giving her something to sink her teeth into. And then, you just put two people together and they have a really good match. And I thought it was great. I thought they showed off the strengths of each other. She continues to get better and better. Yeah, I loved it.
I think this episode needed it as well because what we had up until this point was just lots of fine
a lot of
wrestling,
decent,
which like, it's great that Carl Fletcher got a singles win, but it's not like, go out of your way to see this.
Yes,
it is great that Jukes Robinson got a win ahead of his match on Dynamite and cut a very good promo, but you don't need to go out of your way to see this. Same with the Samoa Joe Willie Mack match. This is a match you should go out of your way to see. Yeah. Because I thought this match was absolutely fantastic. Really liked this. Statlander, like almost... There was a couple of like great near falls off of this. And Statlander sort of like escaped with a win, more or less, because Sky was being so vicious. And a very interesting post-match as well, which is that Statlander wanted to help Sky Blue up and shake her hand and be like, "Good match, kid. Like, you gave me your all out there." But Willow Nightingale, who's also been misted in the past, said like, "Oh no, I've got this." And it was like, it's almost like, don't go back to the light because you and I are sort of falling towards the dark here. I thought it was an interesting little post-match. I really liked.
It was intriguing. I mean, I am a little bit tired of seeing Willow run to the ring after every single Statlander match. Like, that's basically the way that she's been since winning the Owen. I know there was like injury involved as well in places, but whatever. But that element of the story part of it that I really like. I'm really intrigued by that. Like, or even because it could be either. It could be like, don't hold our hand because like when you've been missed, it's not nice and there's clearly something going on. Or as you say, it could be the like, hang on, I'm going to stop her from being redeemed or whatever. Like I think that part's really interesting.
I really, really liked everything about this. I thought Sky Blue was superb. I thought Chris Statlander was awesome. And there was like, I did see some discourse over the weekend, which is like, yeah, we need to have that conversation about Chris Statlander being among the best that AEW has.
Yeah, she's brilliant.
But not even just the best that AEW has. Like, when you compare it across the board of women's wrestling as a whole, she is in the conversation of the best that there is going right now. She is just great. The match she had with Julia Hart at Wrestle Dream was superb. This was great here. Really, I'd love to see her get more TV time.
Well, this is it.
Get like more TV matches.
So in this case, it was 9 minutes of the match, 3 of which were picture-in-picture. Slim down that juice segment, and you've got an extra couple of minutes to play with, just to give them a little bit more time. To tell a story more than just a run-in at the end.
Yeah. We had a promo, obviously the Carl Fletcher promo we mentioned earlier. We had a promo for LIF, a faction name that I just cannot say.
Inga Nobles?
Yep, Inga Nobles. Las Faction de Inga Noble, something or other.
Yep.
This was great
cool.
work by Rouge. Cool. Really, really cool. And then Keith Lee squashed Turbo Floyd with Shane Taylor and Lee Moriarty watching backstage. Boy, Lee won quickly.
Who is Turbo Floyd?
He is part of, I can't remember what their tag name is now. The chat will be able to update me on this.
Because I just
wrote, they're like they're an 80s throwback.
I was going to say
comedy tag team.
Because this is Keith Lee versus a character from a wrestling cartoon in 1993. I didn't know who it was.
Yeah, they're an 80s throwback comedy tag team.
Well, they're doing it very effectively,
which is why he's like grown his hair out, despite the fact that he hasn't got any hair up top, and he's got the thick handlebar mustache and stuff. It's a very cool look.
At least he had something to do.
Yeah, and Nick, I like Keith Lee. Big fan of Keith Lee.
Yeah.
Getting wins on TV. I'm excited for his feud with Shane Taylor.
Yeah.
Shame about that Swerve feud, eh? Miro cut a promo about CJ. And I really liked Outrunners. Thank you very much. And it's LFI, not LIF.
Yeah. Well, it's because LIW.
Oh, that's where I've gone wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I really like this promo for Miro because he had this thing about CJ Perry, which is that she's now surrounding herself with the things that she loves. But if she wins gold, she'll become dangerous. I was like, oh, that's a lovely little detail of like, yeah, you think she's like, she's manipulative now as like a manager. Wait till she's got a championship. Like she's unstoppable then. Yeah,
I was well into all of this story, and I don't have much to say about it other than I found it really compelling.
Yeah,
like I think that I think she's really good, and she's taken a lot of acting classes, and I think you're sort of seeing the fruits of that. And I think Miro is just fantastic in every sense of this. Loved him grabbing Action Andretti in there at the end as well, to be like, this is because it gives you the mind of like, oh, this is just a thing he's made and put on, but actually it's very real, it's very present. I really liked it.
Yeah, to essentially say like, look, if you want to be a manager with. You want to be managed by CJ Perry, I am going to stop you before you get the chance because she needs to be stopped before she gets the chance.
Yes.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
And we also got a video promo for Rocky Romero versus Mistico, which is happening on Rampage next week.
Which was like the Bake Off history segment, I thought. It gave us a nice little bit of context and made it feel interesting. I really liked it.
Yeah. Added a lot of importance. I wish this was on Dynamite, not on Rampage.
I said, yeah, shame it's happening on Rampage.
Yeah, a real shame this is happening on Rampage. And it's, they are starting a relationship now. It feels like this is the end of AEW's relationship with Triple A, which I'm sure Conan's happy about because he's been calling Triple H for the last year to try and get a working relationship with him instead. So this is probably a much more fruitful relationship. This will work so much better for New Japan as well, who have a relationship with CMLL. So
it just makes sense.
It makes so much sense. And it means that we're getting Mistico. And I'm hoping, here's what I'm hoping. Mystico is going to show everyone why we were excited about Mystico joining WWE all those years ago. Because when Mystico signed with WWE...
Oh, it was huge.
It was massive.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if people can really appreciate this unless you were kind of there at the time, how big of a deal it was that Mystico had signed with WWE. And what a crushing disappointment Sin Cara was.
Well, when we talk about like this new age or this new era of WWE or like whatever, Mystico is a great touchstone for it because that was one of the first examples of a Triple H signing.
It was a Triple H project.
Yeah,
that and the Shield
and Karma.
Yes,
and I
Karma,
actually watched a interview with Karma with Kong recently, where she was talking about how things had sort of gone wrong for her, and she was like feeling quite sad because she was like, oh, between this and Mistico, like we're really letting Hunter down, which was really interesting that they took it on themselves. And it was this whole thing of like Vince has never really been able to like let go, but also something about the whole Sin Cara thing, the weird lighting, that not getting it. Like I don't think
the trampoline entrance,
like all of it was just so not it.
But he also didn't do himself any favors.
This is what I mean.
Yeah,
this is what I mean. Like there's the presentation of it, and then there's the so we've been talking about a new era. So again, for the people who weren't there, this was our first example of a new era. Like, and it never came.
Yeah, and it never happened because Mistico arrived there. The reports were that he just wasn't interested in learning English, which is why I was like, I didn't really care, and he dislocated his pinky finger in a match and asked for the match to be called off and stuff, and like that led to its own individual stuff. He got taken out of various matches because he was like, I'm done now for the day. I don't really fancy wrestling anymore. And eventually, they just replaced him. It was like, here's a new Sin Cara.
Was it Hunico?
It was Hunico. Yeah, Hunico essentially replaced him, being like, you're not Sin Cara anymore. Yeah. Bye. Come back to Mexico with you. And Hunico took over. And so yeah, like it was. I'm hoping that the Mistico and Rocky Romero can show like, oh yeah, this is why people were really excited about Mistico signing all those years ago.
Just pray for his pinky finger.
I just wish it was on Dynamite or Collision.
Yes, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
And then we got our main event of Bryan Danielson versus Christian Cage. This is where JR came out to replace Kevin Kelly. And man, this match was great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing we're getting to see this match anyway because, there was a period of time where neither of these lads thought they were wrestling anymore. And now here they are, the main event of Collision, having... I loved Statlander and Sky Blue. This is the best match of the night.
Yeah.
Might not be my favorite match of the night, but it was the best match of the night. And it was just so... I had a genuine moment. I was like, God, it's awesome we get to see this.
Yeah.
And then Adam Copeland comes out late and you're like, it's awesome we're getting to see him wrestle as well. And you're like, Soraya was on the show on Wednesday or Tuesday even. So this match was just so great. The Danielson comeback was magic. Like the crowd literally helping him up. And he got both sides to help him up as well, so he can beat the 10 count and get back into the ring, because this crowd wanted to see Danielson get in there and win this, because he connects with the crowd in a way that not many people can. And when he went for the knee plus and Christian hit the spear straight into the unprettier for an amazing near fall, it was like so great. Then Danielson responds immediately with a knee plus for a great near fall, and he locks in the label lock. And Christian, and long legs of Christian, manages to get to the ropes. So Danielson drags him into the center to lock in the label lock. But because Christian's been working over his arm the whole match, he can't use his arm properly, can't lock it in. Big Bill runs down to cause distraction with the referee. Ricky Starks, almost like one fluid motion, jumped into the ring, hit him with a belt, and rolled out the ring on the other side. And Christian stole the win. It was a super finish to a superb match.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I loved Danielson do. Right at the start, I saw that we had half an hour left of the show, and I was like, okay, so this is getting some time. This is going to be fun. And I feel like they could have delayed this for a pay-per-view and used it for like a big feud for his last year, with Christian on the run of his life, Danielson on the way out. Maybe they will, I wrote down, and then kind of what we got was a really interesting non-finish kind of thing. Danielson doing the surfboard and then fish hooking Cage in the middle of it was like, because he's the good guy, like that's a Blackpool Combat Club move. That's the shades of grey that I really like to play with. The continued use of his forearms his broken forearms to tell a story is really nice. Like it makes you believe it. He's so good at that. And then I thought what was great, especially about the finish, because even though we did get a naughty finish, is that between Christian kicking out of the knee and then holding on through an elongated, although not fully cinched in, label lock, he's proving he's not just the champ by circumstance and shenanigans. He has been not the champ but claiming the champ, which we've all enjoyed, and now he's the champion through taking advantage. And he's always been trying to hold back, and he's got his heavies involved. He came out with a legion of security at the beginning of the show, but what you got there was he can hang with Bryan Danielson. He can hang with it. He's actually damn good, also he's still a heel, so he's gonna take advantage of offers of help from the tag champs and offers of help from Luchasaurus, because he's smart,
I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Christian Cage, greater than sign Adam Copeland. He's the better of the two, man.
Now we can directly compare them at their old age.
He's the better of the two, and he always has been. Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus were banned from ringside, so they came down afterwards, and everyone got into a big brawl. FTR came down, Adam Copeland ran down, and everyone sort of brawled and knocked everyone out, and it left Nick Wayne alone in the ring. Poor old Nick Wayne with FTR, Danielson, and Adam Copeland in the four corners. He almost woke up, was like,
oh no.
Yeah. Bang! Huge spear by Copeland and rolls out of the ring, and the good guys stand tall.
And this was the bit from the beginning of the show where I was like, oh, that's why I'm excited to see you in that ring.
That's exactly it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have those moments where he sort of stumbles over a little bit with the Ricky Starks, and you're like, maybe this Adam Copeland thing isn't almost crowd out to me. And then he hears that spin, and you're like, oh no, he's awesome. Like, of course he's awesome. What am I thinking? What a foolish thing for me. What a foolish thought to have had. Like, he was great in this final segment here. I loved the match. And there was a moment during the commercial break when Danielson was, because he's still not using that right hand.
Yes.
He's doing everything with that left hand because the right hand's got the metal rod in it from the Okada match. Love that he's carrying that through all of his matches. And they're talking about the fact that he's only using one arm at the moment. And Nigel McGuinness said, look, Bryan Danielson is married with 2 kids. I'm sure he's used to using the other hand.
Nigel!
It popped me. I thought Nigel was wonderful.
Dear me.
But overall, like a totally fine episode of Collision.
Yeah.
Like, definitely go out your way to watch that main event and the Sky Blue Chris Statlander match. But the rest of it was just building blocks for Dynamite. Yeah. Which I don't think is a bad thing.
Yeah.
So it's like a 3 out of 5 show.
Yeah, it was fine. It was absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Nothing to complain about, but also nothing to write home about.
Yeah.
You know.
The stuff that worked really, really worked. The stuff that didn't was like fine.
Yeah.
Right, let's get into there is a poll up now, so you can let us know what you thought of the show if you're watching live, as we promote WrestleTalk.com/Patreon.
Hello.
Nope, Patreon.com/WrestleTalk.
You should get that one to
So
both around.
I last night, my wife and I had bangers and mash.
Oh,
because it's winter now.
Which is not a euphemism.
It's autumnal now, so we had some bangers and mash.
Yeah.
And I made loads of gravy.
Yeah.
And it was delightful. And we had a little glass, and we had a little bottle of wine.
Ooh.
A little Sainsbury's House White Suave.
Lovely.
Yeah, had that. And then I had a couple of G&Ts as well. And we thought, you know what, let's finally get into watching Series 3 of Succession. Because we haven't seen Season 3 onwards. So we're like, well, let's finally watch that. Watched episode 1, and it got to about sort of about 11:30. And we really enjoyed it. And my wife looked at me and was like, oh, should we have another one and watch another episode? And I was like, yeah, I've only got to be up at 6 to watch Collision, and I've also got to get the kid up and take her to nursery. I'll do that, shall I? I'll watch an hour-long TV show and have another 2 G&Ts.
Yeah.
So that was a mistake, Dan. I'm just so tired today. And I don't think I enjoyed that second episode of Succession as much, because I was just sitting there thinking, why am I in bed?
Of Season 3?
Yeah.
Because that is a great episode.
It's a great episode. Yeah. But I'm there being like, I should be
in bed.
I should be in bed.
Yeah. I should be enjoying my pillows.
I should be just like lying on bed. Yeah. Like, I should be in that position, but I'm not. So that's why I'm stumbling over words. Like
that's fine,
moron.
Because I'm there too. I'm there after 2 weeks of it. I saw someone in the comments last week was like, Dan seems tired this week. It's because Dan was tired that week. let me tell you. What are we doing? What's wrong with us?
Head on over to patreon.com/WrestleTalk. On this coming Wednesday, it is WrestleTalk After Dark. Myself, Tempest, Dave Bradshaw of Fantasy Booking Warfare fame, and Ben. Our new production manager, Ben, joined us on this show. Yeah. He was excellent quality. You learned a lot about Ben. And we had a fun time, had some drinks, answered some fun questions. If you like Final Fantasy VII chat, there's a lot of that because me and Dave get into it. There was some good sports chat that I didn't get to join in with. Great episode. Check that out. That's coming out this Wednesday. And the following Wednesday will be WrestleTalk Extra, which is myself and Oliver Davis reviewing a classic pay-per-view for about 3 to 4 hours. And the pay-per-view for this month, the pay-per-view du jour that won the poll, Halloween Havoc 1997, which I'm going to be watching on the way home today. But if you're one of our $25 and above Patreon Pledgehammers, you get your name read out on this show like these fine folks. Daylight Robbery, Rob James.
Yo, Adrian Rocky.
The Farm General, Roman Dietrich.
Ross Pooper Scooper Cooper.
He smells like beef and cheese, San Santa.
The man with the scoops, Sean.
The movie Luke has never seen, Selena.
I've not seen Selena. Wheeling and Dealing, Stephen Everett.
The Pharaoh, Stephen Mazzaferro.
The Sole Survivor, 1993.
The Incredible Tarzo.
And Keep Rolling, the Rick Pesh.
So yeah, Denise once said, like, have you never seen Selena? And I was like, I've never even, like...
J-Lo.
Yeah, well, it's because I made the point. I was like, oh yeah, she made her name in movies through Anaconda.
Oh,
she said, like,
mama.
She's like, no, she made her name in movies by being in Selena. I was like, Denise, I think it's probably Anaconda. So I just started like driving that home because I knew I was wrong. So I just was like, no, it's Anaconda. And I think everyone would agree that it's Anaconda.
Between me and Denise, when the Taylor and J-Lo lore, it's strong.
So yes, I've never seen the movie. Let's get into the remainder of your Ultra Chats, and we're going to kick things off here with Nathan saying, imagine Christian's group interferes, Copeland helps Brian win, then weeks of dissension with Christian group leading to a split, then a boiling hot feud with Copeland. Brian then has a run of singles matches with the TNT title to make it credible. Whoa! To make it credible again?
I think Christian is doing a decent job of making it credible again.
That title just main evented a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Nathan continues, I fear the TNT title will get in the way of a Copeland-Christian feud. It'll be hot enough without it. If Brian is retiring, then having a run of open challenges of good matches will be a way to get the TNT title over and send off Danielson. I don't disagree with some of that, but I don't think that the TNT title's in any... Like, it was, 3-4 months ago. Pre-Collision, that title was dead.
Yeah, I agree.
It was deader than dead. But Christian and Luchasaurus have brought that title back.
Yeah. And
that title now feels like a big title. It feels like a big deal again. That prize that people want to win. That's why it was the main event for pay-per-view. Not just because of Copeland's debut, but because Christian and Darby was a hot feud for a hot title. Yeah, no, I disagree with that aspect of your comments.
I do think that there's something in... Because Brian's not going near the world title picture again anytime soon. Assuming this is very much genuine, his sort of final year thing. He loves to lie. But, like, I think the idea of him having a run with a belt is quite a nice one, And yeah, if you're... I'm trying to think of who it could be, but, like, your final match is you losing this championship and you've been on a winning streak for a really long time. And then you retire and you bequeath the championship to someone new. That's quite a moment, isn't it? So, like,
I could see the Full Gear match being Danielson and Claudio against Starks and Big Bill for the tag titles. Oh no, it can't be because the Young Bucks have got the title match. But I think I could certainly see them doing it on Collision, particularly with Starks interfering at the end of this match, and sort of like his promo segment at the start of the show was still, keeping that but Danielson plate spinning. So I could see Danielson being in a tag title match against Starks and Big Bill.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Young Bucks have got the Full Gear match because they won it at WrestleDream. I forgot about that. Charles here said, so they'll be called Rated FTR, right? Hey boys, how are you doing? I'm incredible, thanks for asking. I'm happy, I'm healthy, and I have an amazing woman in my life. But it's time to return to my other love, watching wrestling and making awful jokes. Have a nice day. Well, it's lovely to have you back, Charles. You have been missed.
Rated FTR is exactly what it's going to be.
Yeah. The Derbiest of Derb says, Dan and Luke in reviews back-to-back days. Sign me up. Very excited to see Miro finally get something to sink his teeth in. Has CJ signed with AEW? Because I remember the original report being that she hadn't. That's what I remember about it as well.
So my recollection is that it was on a short-term deal, and they had said very, very much that it was short-term. Like they'd always doubled down on it, and I remember being a little bit annoyed for CJ because I think she's genuinely very talented, and I think I think as an asset, there was something almost weirdly like, yeah, well, we're not going to sign her. Like about the reporting of it that felt very odd. If they have signed into a long term, or this is part of the short term deal, this is a very effective use of her.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's probably just a pay per appearance deal at the moment, which is
she's not on every week.
No, which is what Kota Ibushi was on originally, and he is now signed fully with AEW. It was just an on pay per appearance thing, and because I'd imagine like if you're Tony Khan as a promoter and a booker, you're like, well, I know the first story I'm doing is with Miro, but it's like, well, what do I do after that if I'm not putting them together? Because if you then sign into a 5-year deal, it's like, well, what do I do for the other 4
and
hey,
I'm a massive proponent of that kind of short term deal, especially with the industry being in such a positive state that it's in at the moment with international
Oh,
dates, with indies doing really well. There's lots of places that you can go and play a trade, and you can do really well within that.
Yeah.
So a short-term deal to get some TV exposure, and then your story's done and you pop off, and then you can come back later on. Brilliant.
I love that as well. Laramesh says, time for some slang translations. This week lessons, cook. To do exceptionally well, e.g., let him cook, or Chelsea was absolutely cooking against Burnley this week. Slang synonyms include fried and smoked. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Just to call you up here on this, Chelsea have never cooked. Certainly not in the past couple of years. But yeah, that is what. Do you know about cooking?
I have seen people say it.
It's one of those things that
I've opened up Twitter on a day before, so I've just seen like everyone is just like, oh, let them cook. That person was cooking right there.
It's cringe. It's another one where I'm like, I'm sorry. The original meaning means something, and then people use it so much to the point where it's like, so But I'm here for Slang Corner that you can learn more. I've got you covered. You know this. You bring me a word, I'll tell you how it is. Like that main event 8. People seem to like that last week, so maybe we'll start saying that more.
I loved it. Did you see my my great reel that I did today on the old Instagram?
No, I haven't been on the Instagrams today.
Oh, mate, check out the new reel that I've done.
Wow, what was it about? Was it about? Did you eat? Did you serve?
No, I drank actually.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, check me out. I'm an Instagram megastar right now. I'm actually on track to hit 4,000 followers by the end of the year.
Yes, Queen.
Yeah, I've just passed 3,900. So.
You better work.
Add my target 4,000, which I'm probably gonna do.
Great.
And one last one here. Speaking of Instagram, is from Kevin, who said, "Luke, thank you for sharing your wife's poem on Instagram. As a lot of family members went through this situation, including my mum, twice before I was born. A reminder that through the hardships, there are beautiful things to hold on to. Support each other. Much love." Thank you very much, and it's a lovely message. I wasn't sure whether I was going to share it yesterday. It's still. The wound is still fresh. But yes, thank you very much. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And my wife's poetry is very, very good.
It is very good. I agree on that front.
So thank you all so much. That is the last of our Ultra Chats. And if I end this poll now, we should be able to... No, it stopped. It ended. Darn. I was about to say we could have done the fun internet thing that people like to do.
Which is what?
Which I could have said that it was 69. Nice.
Was it not?
It wasn't. It was ended at 68% thumbs up, mid 27. To be honest, that 68 thumbs up is higher than I thought.
Me too.
I'm really, really surprised at that. So, someone said cooking is lit. Fire emoji.
That does sound like a text that I would send, in fairness.
Thank you all so much for watching the show. Myself and Dan are back tomorrow with the Raw review. Please do check out our sponsor, Geology, and get yourself 70% off your trial set using our link and promo code WRESTLE70. Cannot recommend Geology enough, so go and check them out. We'll see you tomorrow for the Raw review, and then myself and Ollie Davis will be back on Thursday with the Dynamite review with that Battle Royal. Quite a lot advertised for Raw this week as well.
2 big shows this week.
It's the season premiere
of
Raw this week. So
what could happen?
Rhea Ripley and Shayna Baszler. We have got
Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso versus the Judgment Day for a change.
Gunther and Bronson Reed.
And we have there's one more. No, I'll get it.
There is something else advertised as well.
It's a fourth like match.
There is a fourth match.
It's a fourth match.
I mean, like SmackDown had a hell of a show this week.
Hey, so, Nick Aldis.
As a season premiere. Finally, we've got defined roles.
What a week for authority figures it was. I was thrilled about it.
Here we go. What do you got?
Ricochet and Nakamura in a Falls Count Anywhere match.
There it is.
That's what we've got.
That is.
I love an authority figure.
Yep. Just as forgettable. I'll forget that will be on the card until the show tomorrow again. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. I've been Luke Owen, DAD. That has been the Professor of the Truth, your Jam That Champion, Dan Layton. Jam that jam.